In the last session, there was one specific question that was asked, meant specifically for introspection. And the question was, I'm pausing because the question should be known to you rather than to me. And I'm looking forward to the answer. For those who have forgotten the question itself, here's a repetition of that question. And it was, every one of you in this group is engaged in some activity or the other. From the youngest in the group, who is 16 years old, to the oldest, I do not know the age. Everyone is engaged in some task or the other with an ultimate objective of securing three things: security for your life, peace, and happiness. And in short form, we call it SPH, which also includes the big word called peace. The question was, are you getting this objective accomplished based on whatever you're doing? Because every one of us will engage in some task or the other, certainly with the ultimate objective of getting these three things. And sure enough, you will just back off if you do not get that. So that was the question for introspection. I want to see if anyone has an answer which is different from what I think, and which is, I'm good with whatever I'm doing. I'm really getting what I want. I'll be so happy to meet that person, maybe fly down if that person is not in Canada, because I don't know whether it's possible at all in the world of duality in which we all have to necessarily delve and dwell, where there is an inevitability of being in a relationship. It's a different matter that you can decide to choose what relationship you want to pursue. But not being in a relationship is a non-starter in the world of duality, in which we have to do all our tasks. I give 30 seconds for someone to raise the hand and say, I'm absolutely at peace. And when we say we are at peace, it has to be uninterrupted peace. You cannot say, for large part of my life, I'm happy. That's not life. As long as there is an interruption to happiness, you're not happy. This is the definition of human life, which we have always faltered in terms of understanding. So is there anyone who has this idea that they are enjoying security, peace, and happiness with whatever they are doing? Thank you for shaking your head from east to west and north to south. Good. So we move on to today's session. And I'm going to be talking again on the most important aspect of truth in applied Vedanta. It's not a concept. Concept would mean idea. Idea would mean somebody has developed it. So this is not idea. And ideas can always change. A perspective about an idea can change. Understanding can change. But truth always remains truth. And it's not even fact, because facts also can change. Fact is a pseudo-truth in the phenomenal or functional world. we don't agree with that. We have to be dealing with the truth, and applied Vedanta is not a concept but a truth that can be brilliantly used to seek that security, peace, and happiness through and through your life if you understood it and practiced it. Understanding doesn't mean I give you some ideas or thoughts or concepts and you understand it. It's not that way. There's a knowledge already there. All I'm doing is presenting that knowledge to you. The choice of accepting it, introspecting it, assimilating is entirely yours. And we had extensively talked about the benefits of acquiring this knowledge and utilizing this knowledge. And there are several people, that includes me, who is experiencing that great uninterrupted bliss that we all seek in this life. Let's not even talk about life after death, if there is one. But clearly, the life is certain, and the fact that we are experiencing ups and downs with no prior information is the reality. A last statement on why Vedanta, applied Vedanta, is a necessity is this: that every one of us is going through this tumult in our lives, and it just drops without a prior warning, makes our life rather complicated, complex, not a happy state to be in. The idea is, if you maintain this encounters of ups and downs constantly and battling with your life, so your life is gone. But what we want is to install peace in that place so that at least you have a seamless transition from life to death, and that death is a peaceful death. And you can only have a peaceful death if you manage to get that peace through and through while you're living. Because what is going to happen during the death is important to understand here. At the time of death, your conscious mind stops to function. What is in action at that time? I'm talking of the last moments. What is active at that time is only the subconscious mind. And what goes into the subconscious mind is all the things in respect of your interactions, which may have resulted either in peace or in war, or conflicts, contradictions, devotion, non-devotion, all of those things which you have been experiencing through this life is going to solidly settle down in the subconscious mind. So if the subconscious mind is full of thoughts about the miserable life that you have led, which it will have, then the struggle begins even during the time of your death. And we have seen all these things. Really, a number of people are struggling to die. We understand struggling to lead a life because of several reasons, most important being the ignorance, which has this power to allow us to engage in repetitive cycle of mistakes. That's the power of ignorance. And that's why we do the same things over and over again, regardless of the fact that we have experienced something terrible due to a certain action. But the ignorance is so powerful and it will always be there with us because knowledge by itself is never complete, it's never full and final. So, the coexistence of ignorance is a given thing. And we are not talking only about the, the ignorance of physical science. We are particularly talking about the ignorance of the non physical area or the abstract region, which is very much part of our lives. So, if you didn't get a mastery over your life as it is, then you are certainly going to be asking for a tumultuous death experience. So we must understand applied Vedanta in its completeness. And there are a few concepts that you don't have a choice but to keep repeatedly understanding it. Because a moment of slip is enough for you to get back into the misery. So a constant reminder of the concept, the truth becomes very important. With that in mind, I'm going to be touching upon few important aspects of applied Vedanta, which if you do not remember, there is no application happening. All of this will merely translate into simple discussions, which for me is complete waste of time. Unless we absorb and make use of it in our real lives and get the full benefit of it, not just partial, full benefit of it, applied Vedanta is a complete washout. With that in mind, I'm just going to talk to you about the important aspects of applied Vedanta today. Knowing the known. This means you know something, but you don't know it. That's what it really means. Knowing the known. And knowing the known is with reference to what? It's with reference to your own self. How amazing is it, right? We all claim to be knowing about ourselves. And anyone who says, I know myself, is the one who doesn't know himself. This is an irony, unfortunately. And we have to live with it. And that's what most of the people in the world are doing. I know myself. You don't have to teach me. And I'm not teaching, for God's sake. Because knowing about you must be your own attempts to find out what you are and who you are. Two aspects. What you are, who you are. You must have heard this great sentence by many sages who say, who am I? And that translates to who you are. But no one ever cares to talk about what am I? What are you? So there are two aspects, what you are and who you are. And that's the individual makeup. We're going to learn that. If you miss this, there's no applied Vedanta at all. And I'm doing this based on a feedback that I received from one of my sishyas who said it's important, even at the cost of repetition, to reiterate some of the most important themes of applied Vedanta and take that theme one at a time so that it doesn't become overwhelming to people who are listening. And I do want to talk about what is overwhelming. Information overload is not necessarily overwhelming. A lot of people think that if I just stuffed a lot of things within an hour's time, it's overwhelming. No. In reality, if you didn't catch all the aspects of what is being talked here, then it is overwhelming already. You're just listening. You're not even hearing. We do not hear in life. We do not see. This is the real truth of life. We do not see. We do not know what is seeing. We do not know what is hearing. These are real truth in life. Okay, let's get into understanding the individual very clearly. So, if you remember, I had shown this slide in the last session, and I said these are the two eyes of an individual. When I say I is the self, do you understand what this self really means here? Does
The
any
I, like me, Swamiji.
right? I basically is introducing yourself to someone. That's what you would say. I, myself, so and so. That is that I there. And this I has two things going for it. The known, which is not known to you, is this aspect, which is about your own self, which you think you know, which is the body, mind, brain complex, which we call here as the small I. You must remember these terminologies. The small I is referring always to the ego, which consists of your body, mind, and this aspect of reflected consciousness. But for now, we just stay with the small I without the reflected consciousness. So, what do you think you know is this body and mind? Not really, because we still don't know what this body mind does. If you knew it, you should be able to avoid all the mischief that it creates. The fact that you don't know it means you're not able to understand the mischief it creates. The day you know the mischief it creates, then you can stop it. Then you can say, I know this body and mind. Otherwise, no. Unfortunately, this is the only instrument that we have to deal with in the functional world. Therefore, we are all the time concerned about ourselves, the I, which is with reference to the small I. Not for a minute to think, how does this body and mind really work? Does it work on its own? Because the moment a child is born, a proper child, it is conscious. There's no time gap between its birth and it becoming conscious. In fact, it's already conscious from inside. So we are tempted to assume that this consciousness is just part of the birth. It is. But the distinction must be understood that consciousness acts independent of this body and mind. It's a separate entity. This must be all the time understood. That's the key here. It has got nothing to do with this small I. If tomorrow there are no small eyes at all in this world, this big I will stay. That is, the consciousness will stay all the time, it will stay. It is eternal. In fact, it's beyond time. It has got no time that can command its existence. So, therefore, it's beyond time. So, it's always in existence. This body and mind is not always in existence. It'll go one day. Body earlier, mind sometimes later. So, where is the confusion? I'm always associating myself with the small I. There could be two reasons. Because I'm able to function in this world with this body and mind, which is conscious. Why should I know how I became conscious? If you don't know that, that is the cause of the mischief. Why am I conscious? How am I conscious? You don't care to know that because during the period when you're engaged with the world, you're comfortably making use of your body and mind to transact all the business. And you say, okay, this is me. Not realizing for a minute that if this consciousness was not behind this body and mind, this body and mind can do nothing in this world. In fact, it can't even see the gross world, which is on the left extreme, if you see there. Your ability to see the gross world, which is required, first of all, for you to do the transaction. If you want to listen to me, you have to see me first or hear me first. To do that, you require this consciousness from behind. If you knock this consciousness out, this body and mind cannot see this world. This is so simple in theory and in practice. So, the inevitability of the presence of consciousness is something you cannot negate at all. But as I mentioned, consciousness has got nothing to do with this body and mind. So, what does it do essentially? Its job, its nature is to reveal things because it is awareness principle, it is existence principle, it is bliss principle. The combination of these three is written there on top. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is bliss. They are not separable, they are together as one unit of a word, but for explanation and understanding purposes, we split them. So, one of the aspects or natures of this consciousness is awareness. So, wherever it is, the awareness will happen.
Swamiji, I
Where
have a
is it?
question.
Yeah.
Swamiji, I have a question. So, what you're saying makes sense. It's all making sense. And you said that the small I is the ego, right? Why is it that if we are the consciousness, like, why are we not actively able to constantly be reminded that the consciousness is what has created the ego? And if we know that, and we know that ego is bad, why is it so prevalent in our life? Like, why is it so easy for us to fall back on the small I, knowing that the small I has been created by the consciousness, and the consciousness has also created bliss. The consciousness is also the awareness of peace. The consciousness is also awareness of happiness. Why is it so easy for us to pick ego versus um the peace, the bliss, the happiness instead?
Brilliant question. Because in between this, there's a dark region called ignorance. This ignorance is the ignorance of human beings at the micro level, ignorance of the self being really the big I. And because there is an ignorance here, ignorance does two things in life. One, it puts a veil on the truth. And what's the truth here? The truth is the big I. And ignorance also does simultaneously another act, which is to promote something which is not truth as the truth. So, what is the not truth here is this part. So long as you're ignorant about this truth here, then you're not likely, but you're definitely going to be associating yourself only with this, because this ignorance is that darkness which is not allowing you to understand the existence of the consciousness itself, which is everything. All the things that happen here is consciousness. But between the consciousness and the body mind, that element of ignorance is so powerful that one, it veils this truth and then projects this as the truth. And
Is that then not the consciousness essentially self-sabotaging the individual? Like, why do that to begin with? Because the consciousness is the truth, but the consciousness is also making you, the individual, be ignorant. So isn't that almost basically self-sabotage?
not really, because the consciousness principle is akarta, non doer. It's not engaged in any activity at all. It is not making you become ignorant. Its job is to make you aware. But you chose to be ignorant as the small I because you are functioning yourself with this body and mind with a consciousness which is not a real consciousness. And therefore, now the concept of reflected consciousness must come into the picture. So, what happens is consciousness all the time present, not connected to the body and mind, not created this body and mind, not responsible for this body and mind at all. In fact, if there is no body and mind, if there is no world, consciousness still will be there and will do the same things, not do it by virtue of its nature. Constantly, revelation will happen. The picking up of the revelation is done by the body mind. It is not telling the body mind, take it. I'm showing you. Please become aware. It's not doing anything of that sort. It is awareness.
So so as the individual then, how can we actively choose to listen to the or to be that awareness? How can we put that into practice, especially if our entire existence is to fulfill karmic duties, fulfill whatever it is? How can we lead our life so that we aren't ignorant? We're not choosing ignorance from the awareness.
It unfortunately happens automatically until you get this knowledge. You are not tempted. You only are aware of this body and mind principle. You're not aware of the consciousness principle. Therefore, you continue to engage yourself in the functional world. Another truth about this situation is, why do we get into this difficulty of not being able to realize the truth that the big I is really my identity? I cannot function without this big I, is because the big I is not engaged in any performance of duty. In fact, the big I, left to itself, can be considered a phantom. It is just there, some abstract thing. It's the knowing principle, but it it's just knowing principle. But the utility value of that knowing principle can only happen with the body and mind, which is not physically associated with this awareness principle. This is how the structure of human body is. You have a body, mind, and the consciousness all put together in one bunch. But the key thing to remember here is this: the mistake that we all make, that we are conscious being, is happening because we are consciously performing things. And conveniently, we don't need to know the presence of an entity called consciousness, which is independent of the body and mind. In fact, which is the quote unquote enabler, while it's not enabling, it's just doing, it's just the awareness principle. And you get the enabling because you get associated through a one-way relationship with the consciousness. You're able to become aware. Now, key point to remember is about this reflected consciousness. So let me hop on that point a little bit more. So the
Uh,
awareness is,
Swamiji,
may I just
Swamiji,
may I just complete this concept, please, for a
sure.
minute?
Yes.
Okay, so the awareness principle is all the time making revelations, not making, it is revelation. It's not principle, it's a revelation principle. Revelation means illumination, means knowledge. Knowledge is usually used, the other synonym of knowledge is illuminate. I'm illumined. So that illumination principle is to be understood here as a reflection that comes from the consciousness, not that it is taking it in a bowl and giving it to you, it's just there. But the mind has an ability to absorb that reflection, i.e., the revelation that is happening because of the presence of the consciousness. So effectively, what the mind gets is not the original understanding of things around. It's a reflection that comes out of this consciousness and gets into your mind. When I use this word reflected consciousness, it means the consciousness, the conscious human being is a fake personality. It's an image. It's not a real personality because it is getting the reflection only. It is not the original consciousness. So we call this consciousness, which is the universal consciousness, as OC or original consciousness. It is not the original consciousness that you and I are making use of to be able to do transactions in the world. Not at all. This concept must be understood by virtue of the fact that we are transacting in this world on account of reflection from the consciousness, makes it very clear that this body mind complex by itself is a fake and image. It's not real. And imagine yourself, you are not real. You are transacting with the world, which is not real, because that world, which consists of people with whom you are transacting, they are also acting on the basis of the reflected consciousness that they are getting. So every one of us is handling or transacting with each other based on the ego principle, which by itself is not real. It is a false entity. Why false? The moment the image, the reflection stops, this entity is gone. It can't function anymore. You may have a body, there's a body there, but it cannot function because there's a snapping that takes place between the consciousness and the body mind upon death. So, what are we? We are all fake people. Our consciousness itself is fake. I'm talking about the body mind consciousness. When we say, I'm a conscious being, no, that being is really the fake instrument. But without that instrument, this consciousness is a phantom. So I now come to this point of the body mind being an instrument only. It has got no other ability. It has got no other features other than it being the instrument to function in the world, which also it can only function provided there's a reflection of the consciousness. Otherwise, this is a complete piece of wood, and we call that as matter principle. Body, mind, world. All of the things that you see on the left side are matter principle. What you see on the right side is the only spirit principle or the consciousness principle. Why are we harping on this topic so much? Because we must know that we get agitated. We look upon other people, pass judgments, behavior is noted, all of which are basically the body mind, which is a matter principle. And I started talking about two things. You must know what you are and who you are. Now you can understand the who you are that you have been thinking all the while is itself a matter principle. and it can do nothing without the reflection of the consciousness. And this, who you are, which is a matter principle now, sans the reflected consciousness, has got another element called what you are. That what you are is all part of the mind, which is essentially born out of the energy principle. Energy has three important ingredients, which are the energy propensities called the SRT. So, the fact that you are born out of that energy principle, automatically, mind is the first creation of that energy principle. This mind will be endowed with this SRT principle. And SRT is nothing but the energy propensity, the positive, negative, and the neutral energy. It is not energy, but it's a propensity. This SRT creates the positivity in you, the negativity in you, and the neutral behavior. So, what you are essentially is the SRT. That's the ingredient, which has come automatically because you're born out of that energy, and all the energies will have this SRT principles. In fact, the entire world that you see on the left side, which includes you, all of the creation, they have come only from this energy principle. And therefore, every object in this creation that you see will have the SRT principle in different proportion in accordance with what you're supposed to be doing in this world. I heard a question earlier. Someone was asking a question.
Yes,
I had, oh, Karen.
I wanted to. The question that I had is the first question that was asked today. That why are we going away from the conscious principle? Why can we not see the truth? I wanted to know, where does the karma theory comes in from the past and so on. As I understand, part of the, you can call it the cloudiness that we have in our lives, is because some of the baggage we're carrying from the past and some of the baggage we're creating in this life. That's what keeps us in that dark. That was I understood to be the basic tenet of that question earlier. That why are we in this dark? Why can we not see the truth so easily? Is our karma the reason we cannot see the truth so easily?
Karma is coming only at a periphery in this particular case, because karma, if you don't have a positive karma in your side, then you will never come to this class.
Okay.
Which means you will ever remain in that darkness. So, the fact that you're not able to see this physically, and a few minutes ago, I was just saying that we don't either see or hear. And now there is a continuation of that understanding here. We don't see anything. Because if you had seen the truth here, you would have understood that consciousness is your real backup. But you have not seen anything. Because you don't see something, you disbelieve it. All you see is the body and mind. So you seem to think that this is the real I. It's because the consciousness principle is so subtle, you don't want to accept something that you cannot see. As if to say that everything that you see is real in this world. In fact, nobody is seeing anything. I can tell you that. Today, the question of the week is pretty interesting. And that's stemming out of the fact that you have not seen the other person. So imagine if you're a false body and mind dealing with another false body and mind, which is both ego, you are transacting with the body and mind, not really understanding that this body and mind has a combination of SRT and a reflected consciousness, and reacting every minute to that body and mind, which by itself is false. And you are acting based on a false body and mind that you have. So, what are you seeing? You're not even seeing the truth in the other person, just transacting with the image that you have, the image being the ego itself. So, karma is not coming here at this time. Karma is coming in the way of your wanting to understand this concept. So, if you don't have a karma by your side, then you won't attend this class. As you know, we had some 20 plus people. They're down to 16. So there was a karma didn't mature for those people who either walked away because this is too heavy duty stuff, or the karma says, continue with what you know and go round and round.
Would you say
Next
that
question.
would you say that it's karma itself that is that is the reason why we have the body and mind? Because if we didn't have the body and mind, then we are the consciousness, which is the ultimate bliss, which is the ultimate peace, which is the ultimate happiness. But because we have karmic duties to fulfill, we are we are we have to be born into a body and mind to go through life, to have that duality, to have the cloudiness, and it's up to us um to go through life in a way where we are noticing the consciousness, right? Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like it's actually karma, which is the reason for why we are having ignorance. It is because we are the body and mind.
First part is absolutely correct. If you
Awesome.
didn't perform any karma at all, which is impossible for any human being, because life, the nature of life is karma. So you're bound to perform karmas. So life comes back to you basically to experience the consequences of the karmas that you didn't perform. And the cycle will continue endlessly up until you realize who really you are, which is the consciousness, and which means that you stop being the karta, which is the doer, the agent. And with that comes the end of the karma being performed by you by simply moving from A to B. It sounds pretty Disney magical, but it's not. It's a reality. You have to experience that because everything that a jnani, we call that as a person who is wise, wisdom here really refers to you're moving away from the body mind to the consciousness, nothing like a wisdom that the functional world understands or means. Here pure wisdom is understanding that you are the consciousness and claiming that and staying with it. When you do that, then you won't be engaged in any duty, yet you are engaged in the duty. That's Bhagavad Gita. You're not engaged in the duty, yet you are engaged in the duty, which means that you're engaged in the duty without any regard to the consequences of what you're doing. All the duties that you do are meant only for the world outside you, and therefore you stop accruing the consequences of your karmas. But you're right in saying that karma is the fundamental reason why you come back, because you need definitely to experience the consequences of a life's karma, which is not possible to be redeemed through one life. It's not possible at all. It's so short. 70 is not enough for the amount of karmas that we perform, especially through the thinking.
So I want to ask, okay, so what you're saying makes sense, but I'm finding it very challenging. I'm just like, this is my own personal experience. I'm turning 35 this year. I have a really good job. I'm grateful for my life. Everything is good, but I still feel like a lot of my existence is living in the functional world. So like, going out, or I like spending my money, and I, get the pleasure when I receive those things. But all of that is so much in the functional world. How can I, on a day to day basis, practice what you're telling us, which is to remind ourselves of the ignorance, the reflected consciousness, which is blocking our minds to realize that our ultimate goal is to be part of that we are the consciousness. Because like, for me, I feel like I get so distracted with like the things that are in my functional world, whether I'm watching a TV show or hanging out with my friends. How can I constantly be reminding myself of that I am the consciousness, that I all of what I am doing is because of my consciousness?
It's a very, very highly relevant question because one of the things most of the people who listen to me experience is this practical difficulty of moving from the small I to big I. Um, I've had so many feedbacks, people who attended mind management courses as well, not even once, twice. They all go through this, difficulty. Um, the answer to this question is very simple. You have to go through this experience yourself. My telling is really meaningless. Every time you face a challenge, and you cannot avoid challenge because you're using an image that you have and dealing with another image that you have about that person. Both are images, which is essentially bundle of nonsense because it has got mind component in it, which is full of rubbish, gathered rubbish, conditions, which unfortunately the world has created for us through words, meant only for misunderstanding. It's so amazing that we have not understood relationship, and we are in relationship. It's appalling. We say we are in relationship, and look at every relationship. There is so much of misery, there's so much of anguish that happens in every relationship. Father, mother, brothers, sisters, father, children, children, father, friends, name the relationship. We say, I am in relationship. You don't even understand the relationship because you are only dealing with the images, your image and his image. Both here, I'm talking about the ego principle being reflected consciousness, which is the ahankara or the individual soul or the jivatma. A jivatma is a fake, is not real. Jivatma versus jivatma can only give you miseries. How do you deal with this? First off, meditation, Vedic meditation. First thing in the morning, no need to do prayers. Those prayers don't help you at all. Your prayer is this: I am the consciousness. I can never be this body and mind, which is the reality that you must understand through the principle that you will come to know in the next slide that I'm going to show. For now, let's say I have to constantly hammer my mind because this is the mind which is playing the mischief. The mind is claiming its undeserving ability. This is the problem. And the mind says, consciousness, oh, excuse me, you have no role to play. You don't know anything. You don't know what's going on in this world. I am the one who is helping this man to work in this world. What are you doing? In fact, there's a pretty interesting conversation between mind and consciousness in one of this Prakarana Granthas written by Shankaracharya. There's a chapter on debate between mind and consciousness. Such an interesting discussion whereby almost for 20 minutes, meaning all the verses, in which the mind goes on criticizing this consciousness. And last verse, consciousness tells the mind, you're nothing if I'm not there. And that's it. Mind will prostrate to the consciousness. Now, unfortunately, because the consciousness is assumed to be present in us, we are not able to distinguish the independent entity called consciousness. So, what do you do? First of all, you have to understand what this consciousness really is. So, we said it's awareness principle, it is non doer, non agent, it is eternal, it is undying principle, it is the bliss principle. You have to really understand this Sattva Chitta Ananda very well. I will explain that to you once I finish this. What is this Sattva? What is this Chitta? What is this Ananda? Where this bliss comes for this consciousness. When you understand that, then you will think, what am I doing in this world? Engaging myself with this fake principle, fake bliss called the pleasure, for which I spend a lot of money. I work hard. And all of this pleasure is only momentary. And I'm okay with that momentary because I do not know that even this momentary pleasure that I'm able to experience, which is called the experienced pleasure, is a result of the fact that it is this Satya Chitta Anandam which is completing that cycle. For example, if you go to a restaurant and eat a good meal that you like, you feel very happy. No, there's a pleasure that gets generated inside, which is momentary. Because the moment you left the restaurant, the pleasure that you thought you got from eating this meal is gone. What you don't remember or understand is the completion of this pleasure, which is a feeling that, what a lovely meal it was. It is enabled because there is the original consciousness which is sitting there inside your own body. If that awareness principle is not available, you can eat the best of meal and you still will not feel the pleasure. So, where is the pleasure really coming from? The completion of the pleasure. It is generated by the engagement of the body mind in the act of eating. But by just simply eating, you don't feel the pleasure. You feel the pleasure only because this consciousness is reflecting to your mind at that point in time. You ate a great meal. Now you feel happy. So, if the consciousness is not there, this pleasure also will not be experienced by you. Now, every act that you perform must have a backing of this consciousness. Every act of cognition, every action is backed by this consciousness, which is an independent entity. It does not care what happens to you. Tomorrow you die, it'll still be there because it's an eternal principle. If there is a fire, it'll say there is fire. I mean, it'll reveal that there is a fire, but fire cannot touch the consciousness at all. This is at physical level. So now we are talking more about the psychological level, which is what we really want to address in applied Vedanta. All the time when we engage with people, because we are engaging our body and mind, fake principle, again with another body and mind, fake principle, consisting of these SRT principles, which is constantly moving up and down, which is making the other person behave constantly in a different way. Never there is a predictability possible with an engagement of any individual in this world or the world at all. That's why you have disturbance. 1 minute he can be very good with you or she can be very good with you. On the second minute it can change because there is a SRT principle that is working. That's the what am I principle is working there. But that's part of the body and mind. This SRT principle cannot touch this consciousness. So, how do I do? Probably that's what you want to know. The secret of how can I be so calm regardless of whatever may happen in this world. There may be an earthquake there. Oh, really? There's an earthquake? It's that simple. It doesn't mean that I'm not empathetic. It doesn't mean that I don't sympathize with people. That's not the issue at all. We do everything that is required in the functional world as a normal human being. But to myself, I'm not related to this event.
But what if it's happening to you? So here's an example. Let's say you and your husband or you and your best friend have a fight, okay? And you are affected by that and they're affected by it. In that moment, do you still feel the effect? Or do you feel the effect and then bring yourself out of it and you say, okay, this body and mind is feeling upset. This body and mind has gone through this situation. So what happens then?
Nice question. When we are engaged in the functional world, we only make use of the conscious mind. And everybody has to understand that the mind has two components, a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. Actions are all performed by conscious mind. Reactions take place in the subconscious mind. So when you're engaging with your husband, friend, whoever, first of all, we must always remember that we are using our body mind, not the consciousness, because consciousness is pure and not engaged in activity. So the conscious mind is what is engaged in actions. That's exactly the reason why we are only concerned about us, the body and mind. We're not concerned about the other person's body and mind. And so when we are using the conscious mind, we act. So we can say something without realizing what effect it could have on the other body and mind. We don't care about it because you're using the conscious mind. SRT is not in the conscious mind. So there is a floating component of the SRT, which is what you're using to interact with the world. So at that point in time, if the floating SRT has a very high component of R is the direct cause for anger, you might just say something angrily, not realizing what effect it will have on the other person. But then when you resign yourself to your own self in solitude, then you start to ponder. The pondering takes place in the subconscious mind. If at that time your basic makeup of the subconscious mind, which is the core SRT, if you're predominant in R or in T, then you're going to say, to hell with him, he only deserves this. So it basically will confirm what action you did with the conscious mind. But if at the core you are S, then you start to think, oh my God, what did I do? After all, she is my daughter. And I claim that I love her, and I just blurted out something. That is the conscious mind, which will let you know that you did something wrong. But here's the catch. Conscious mind and the subconscious mind both belong to this body and mind complex. Their consciousness never came into the picture. Only the reflected consciousness is working at you. So you have to say, when you understood that you made a mistake of yelling at your daughter, then you come into the consciousness and say, was it right? And the consciousness will say, it's wrong. It will say, you claim that you're in a relationship which is based on love, and now you did something that is completely against the principle of love. So correct yourself. And when you have moved from A to B, first thing that happens to you is you remain calm. Even though you have shouted at the person, And that was not legitimate. Because if you're not calm, this SRT, which is enabling you to understand that you made a mistake, will not happen. So to remain calm, you have to move from small I to the big I when you're all by yourself. The big I will teach you what you did was wrong, and then the small I can understand it only then. Otherwise, the next time you meet the same person and some incident took place, again it is going to repeat. So, wearing the consciousness hat will allow you to stay calm and then view or understand what is happening in a much more positive perspective. The perspective will be 100% right when you move from small I to the big I. It's simply like this. If you're inside a sea and trying to swim a, a very fearful sea, you really don't know what's going on. But when you come out of the sea and watch what is happening, it's easier for you to understand, oh my God, this sea is ferocious. By being inside the sea, you really don't understand what's going on. So by being with the body and mind, which is a small I, you cannot understand what's going on. If you want to put an end, because that's what your objective in life should be, it's okay. Today I made a mistake. Next day I made a mistake. But over a period of time, you have to come out of this problem, because if you don't, then you're going to face this music all the time in life. Why? Because the SRT of the other person is constantly going to change, and his or her behavior is not going to be acceptable to this body mind, which doesn't have the ability to understand. So because it's got mind element in it. So you move from body mind, move to the consciousness principle, which you are. Look at this world, and your complete outlook about this world will change dramatically. Because there, the consciousness principle will say, we are all one. From a consciousness perspective, the person in front of me, no matter who he is and what he is, in terms of his body makeup, by principle of consciousness, we're all one. That oneness will be understood very well by you when you move from small I to big I, and that will allow you to embrace the other person the next time you encounter the same person, even if he has not understood this life and he is misbehaving because of his tumultuous SRT frictions. But you are going to be comfortable, and you will not react or act in a manner that's going to hurt you eventually. Because when you're all by yourself and you hurt somebody, it's going to hurt you more than you're hurting the other person. Ninupta, you raised your hand.
Yes, Guruji, I had a question. This is with reference to the earthquake example that you gave. So not everyone is very lucky enough to grasp this knowledge about Satchita Anand. So if someone you're in a relationship with is either A, ignorant of such knowledge, or B, not willing to gain such knowledge due to whatever reason, how do you still follow this eternal principle without sounding indifferent towards the other person?
I already mentioned to you, Ninupta, you are going to be functioning in this world just like every other human being. In fact, it's funny, you will realize that when you are a consciousness principle, your action towards the world is going to be 100% pure. It's not going to be adulterated, because you're not using your mind, which is full of impurities, in your reactions or actions. Even when you're empathizing with somebody, when you're using the mind principle, because the mind by itself is full of negativity, you cannot be 100% empathetic towards somebody. And there too, you will be expecting something. That expectation automatically comes in, even though you want to be empathetic. But when you're wearing the consciousness principle as the hat and as your real I, When you enter this world, then your empathy is going to be so full of 100% truth that that in itself is going to give you the bliss, because that is what the bliss is all about. The misunderstanding that you are being empathetic because of the mind will immediately cease to exist. You cannot be empathetic if you're using body and mind. You can be only to an extent. But when you are a consciousness principle, consciousness is empathy. It's all about empathy. It's all about embracing. So it's
So if I'm
unadulterated, unadulterated. And that's what you want, because when you extend that unadulterated love, empathy, sympathy, whatever you do, it's such a bliss for you, is just unthinkable. You don't need to be in a relationship at all with anybody to do that. Now you see the concept of relationship as coming. We are
but
all
from
dying. We're all dying to be in a relationship because we want the happiness. Here, you don't need to be in any relationship, and still you are all the time.
But Guruji, in the material sphere of things, doesn't a person have to have like equal measures of both the small I self and the big I?
Sorry, I didn't get your question, Bachchan.
I'm saying in the material sphere of things, doesn't one person need to have an equal balance of both I self and the big I?
Balance? You said the
Yes, of
balance?
both. Yes.
Right. Agreed. Because consciousness is akarta. There's somebody on the. Can you kindly mute yourself, please? Thank you. Right. So the balance is a critical point, essentially. But that the other person need not know that you're balancing. Any individual with whom you're reacting or acting, that person doesn't have to know this. So when I'm entering into the functional world, I'm always having the consciousness at the back of my mind. Like, the bass music. In music, there's a bass that goes on. We call that as pads. The pads are just going on, and it keeps moving up and down depending on the decibel at which you are singing or having the music. In the Indian instrument, it's called the tanpura. So the tanpura is all the time playing to keep pace with, or to keep the pitch level with the singer or the instrument that is being played. So when I enter into this functional world, the consciousness is all the time at the back of me. And I'm using the body mind to interact. And there is a situation where I'm facing someone criticizing me. It doesn't take a minute or a second for me to just move from here to there. And immediately I'm saying, okay, he is ignorant. So what's the point in reacting? And today's question is pretty good, I must say that. So we will deal with that subject quite in details when we come to that point. Yeah, we are almost 11:44 here. So look at this. There's only one slide, but this is the key slide, actually, I must tell you. And I have to also answer one more question, which is talking about why do we have this confusion about small I and big I? There's a concept of experience. And so I will deal with that quickly if there are no questions on this slide. But if there are, please ask me. I don't mind doing it again next week. Because if you didn't understand this small I and big I, you didn't learn any applied Vedanta. The whole crux, the cornerstone of Vedanta is this understanding. So you must really understand. If you have questions, please raise it again next week. I'll spend another hour, no problem. But for now, let's try to understand where is this confusion coming from. First off, I said, because you only are looking at your body, mind, you're looking at another person's body and mind, and you're transacting. So therefore, you say body, mind is what is all there in this world. And it's already conscious, because if it was not conscious, you won't be able to act it. But then you have to understand the independence of this consciousness in this body mind complex equation. For that, you have to go back to the experiences that we have. So you must understand that there are only two types of experiences that every individual has. One is the Dvaitam experience, or the duality experience, and then the other is the non-dual experience. There are only two. There's no third experience possible, at least not as of today. Nobody can go through a third experience. Dvaitam basically is the duality, in which you are one entity and you are dealing with another entity. So very simple. What happens? So that's why I use the word Advaita Shantam, the peace in non-duality. So let's understand this very clearly. This is another important subject which we must know, because this is going to confirm to you that you are the consciousness. So what happens during the waking stage of your life is that you are in the world of duality. Absolutely. There's nothing you can do not being in the duality world. Because for transaction, you require two people. Simple thing like now we are talking to each other, you require two people. So duality is just inevitable when you want to transact business, which is what you do during the waking stage of your 24-hour experience. What you don't seem to understand here is that every function that you're performing with your body and mind needs this consciousness backing it up. In fact, in Vedanta, we say it's a consciousness which is acting through your body and mind to experience. Though consciousness is akarta, it's not in functional mode. It is not a doer. But because of the fact that this body-mind principle is just a matter principle, it can do nothing. Really, the experiencer, the real ego, is this consciousness. Because the body and mind is just utilized by this consciousness to perform actions. We can say it in that way. Although direct involvement of consciousness is not possible at all in any action. This is where the confusion comes. So waking stage, everything you do is backed by this consciousness. Fair enough. You are able to look at people, absorb, hear, talk. All these five sense organs are functioning to look at the world outside, at which point in time the mind is extroverted. It's outside. So therefore, you are able to assimilate knowledge from the world outside. So the five sense organs are actually the entry gates and coordinated by this mind principle. That's waking stage. Then as you slip into the first phase or the last phase of your sleep, which could be a dream, again, there is a duality taking place there, because here the mind is not functioning with your real body, but it has created for itself a dream body and a dream world. Now, there was a question which was asked saying that isn't the mind knowing about the presence of the body during the dream stage? I said it cannot, because I did not clarify this point exactly. It cannot, because it is engaged totally with the dream body that it has created. Because the moment it recognizes the existence of the real body, then there's no dream. Therefore, it is actually interacting with a dream body which has been created by it and the dream world, and the dream world and the dream body again is in the sphere of duality. Duality means trouble. This also you have to understand. You agree with this or you don't agree? I'd like to see if someone disagrees with this. You can be in the dual world and then you are at peace. It might be great. You must be somebody really, actually more than a saint, if you can achieve. In fact, the principle of applied Vedanta is to get you to that point where you're bigger than a saint. Because a saint is all the time troubled for your kind information. He's all the time looking at number of people that are following. If 10,000 people today, betray and go to another guru and he's dead, he's so affected because he's in the world of duality, not realizing that he should be actually in the non-dual world, to be at peace, to be able to preach peace to people. But he's not. He's the most affected person in the world, actually. Those are the people who talk about non-duality and duality. Amazing, this world. So in the dream stage, two people, trouble. Then comes the last stage, which is the deep sleep state. So there is a knowledge accumulation taking place in the waking stage. There is really no new knowledge being accrued during the dream state. No knowledge at all. No experience in the dream state. And no knowledge, no experience in the deep sleep state. Now, the important point. Why are we not able to understand? Where is this confusion coming from? In the waking stage, you are using your body and mind. That's absolutely clear. So I'm saying my identity is with body and mind. In the dream also, the mind is working. The sense organs may not, but the mind is working. So you're associated again with the mind at this point. Two stages, which is almost 66%, I believe, of your 24-hour period, you're with your body and mind, because that's what is giving you the experience there. Then comes the third, where the body, mind, both have resolved themselves into a state of potential form. That's why there is no knowledge taking place. There is no availability of the existing knowledge that you have, i.e., if you're an expert French teacher, you know nothing of French during that period. No new knowledge is being gathered. You're in total darkness, in fact, in that particular phase of your experience, where both mind and body have been resolved. But you did not die. For existence, what do you need now? For your existence, what do you need? Because during the deep sleep state, you are not even aware that you're existing. But you're not dead yet. So for existence, what do you need?
Consciousness. Okay.
Absolutely. Do you need the body and mind for existence? For the life? Look at life as one word. To live life, do you require the body and mind? Because that's proved in this last stage that you don't require the body and mind. So as far as my life is concerned, I require 100% the consciousness, without which I can't even function during the waking or the dream state. During the deep sleep state, there is absence of body and mind, and still I'm alive. So what's crucial here? Absolutely. Consciousness is absolutely crucial. But because in the waking and the dream state, we are all the time associated with this fake instrument called the body and mind, we are tempted to be associated. We are tempted to identify ourselves only with these two things, which are both fake because they cannot exist without the consciousness. So during the deep sleep state, there is no duality at all, which is why there is peace. Now the question is, if you want peace, then go on sleeping. Could be a great solution. Why come to the waking stage at all? So the idea of Advaita Vedantam is this, that you experience what you experience during the deep sleep state when you are in the waking state. Can you do it? Can you experience what you're experiencing during the deep sleep state when you're totally awake? Can you do that? That's why we say most people are asleep with their eyes wide open. Why do we say that? Because you have forgotten that your existence, what matters for your existence, what matters for your functionality is the consciousness. So during the waking stage, all the time you are dealing with your body mind, not realizing the simple fact that it is the consciousness which is required for you even during the waking stage. Body mind is simply an instrument. If this confusion can be eliminated, then you are all the time where the consciousness had first. In fact, the truth is this: we are all in reality the spirit or the consciousness principle having a temporary human experience. What a statement is this! We are in reality the consciousness having a temporary human experience, which will go one day. And then we are continuing to be the consciousness. If this can be understood, then no more disturbance.